Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. Hope everybody had a happy holidays and a good new year. I can't believe it's 2024 already, but I am out again and I am starting a long-term project this year. I figured the beginning of the year was a good time to start it, and what I'm going to try to do is to try to photograph some more mammals. So that's my goal this year, is to get more mammal photos, and I am going to be enlisting the help of some trail cameras. I'm going to set some up in different locations where I think there's going to be some good hotspots for wildlife, and that's what I'm doing today. I have 2 trail cameras in my backpack, and I'm going to go to a location where I think there's going to be some good activity, and I'm going to set them up in some good spots, and then I'll revisit them in a week or so and see what we get. But today I am headed out to an area where it's actually really unique geological feature. So it's called an esker. So what an esker is kind of a inverted stream bed. So when you think of a stream bed, you think of water eroding the ground, right? So you have like a U or a V shape in the ground, where this is actually a stream bed that formed during glacial times. So this whole area was covered in glaciers, and right where I am was actually a crack in the glacier. So there was water flowing down in this crack of the glacier, collecting all of the sediment, all the rocks, and it actually created a stream bed on this section. So on either side of the slope there was still ice, and then this section right where I'm sitting right now was actually where all the water collected and where all of the sediment collected. So it actually created a really sharp mound. So on either side of this mound there's a pretty steep slope downhill on either side. So this creates a really unique feature. That's why there's actually some sand and actually river rocks on top of this hill, which is a really unique spot to find that, because usually you'd find those in stream beds, right? But this was basically a river during glacial times, and that creates some really unique habitat in this area. So on either side we have this hill. On this side we actually have a brook, and that flows through the forest that way, kind of goes into a field that way. And then on this side, my left side here, it's actually a pretty dense forest. And on this left side there are actually 2 bogs, and these bogs were formed during glacial times as well, and they actually have some unique species for this area. There's actually some black spruce in the bogs, which is not found anywhere else in this forest, and there's actually a whole assortment of species that are actually found farther north. So there's a lot of plant species found in this bog that are usually found farther up in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Canada and Maine, that area. So these plant species actually got brought down here by the glaciers, and they remained here, and it actually has a really unique habitat down there, and that is where I'm going to set up my first 2 trail cameras around this bog, and hopefully we'll get some footage down there. So let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can find. I'm going to head down that way and hopefully find some good spots to set up these trail cameras. Alright, well, I am on the move again. I probably could have stayed there for another hour or so because there's just so many birds, they just kept coming. But I want to go and set up these two trail cameras before it gets any later. And then I can hopefully do some more bird photography on my way back. But these eskers are also a great location to do bird photography too, because it's a high point in the forest. So it's a great corridor for birds and other animals to travel on because it's higher than the rest of the forest, so you've got vantage points on either side of you. So it's great if you're trying to keep an eye out for predators. And since there's pretty much water on both sides, and it's a very dense forest in this area, there's a lot of hemlock and oak, which means that there's acorns, and the hemlocks, which have these small needles, which a lot of the winter birds prefer. That's where they get their insects, and they eat the seeds from the hemlock cones. So it's a great spot. There was nuthatches, both white-breasted and red-breasted, kinglets, chickadees, tufted titmouse, so all sorts of things foraging around, and they're still there. There's just the problem of actually being able to find them to photograph them, because it's so dense that they are just moving around so much, and you can often hear them before you can see them. So but I'm going to continue on, and I'm almost to the spot where I'm going to set up my trail cameras, or at least go down to explore to try to find a spot to set up. So yeah. Down at the bog, and I know I have one spot that I definitely want to set up. There's a log that actually goes into the bog, and it's like a perfect little walkway for animals to go into the bog. So this bog is it's how most bogs are. So if you're familiar with that, it's essentially a body of water that the center of it has actually filled in. This one at least has actually filled in enough so that there's actually trees, shrubs, all sorts of different kinds of plants growing in the bog, and the outside edges of the bog are still water. So it's kind of like a little island, which means that it's a good spot for animals to hide out in. It's really, really dense brush, so it's a lot of hiding spots. And this one log is a perfect little walkway to get over the section of water and into the bog. So I want to set up my camera, one of my cameras there, and then I'm going to try to do another camera over that way somewhere. So I got my first trail camera set up, and I'm hoping that it's in a good spot. I think it's got a good vantage point of the log going into the bog, and also has a good vantage point or good view of the trail coming around the bog as well. So I'm hoping that even if things just are passing by, I'll be able to catch them on the trail camera. And if they're going in or out of the bog, I'll catch them on the trail camera as well. I was looking around, and besides the scat, there was a whole bunch of white pine cones that had been chewed apart by squirrels, most likely red squirrels. And there's also some holes in the ground, some burrows in the bank as well. So that could be a lot of different animals there as well. So I'm just gonna be circling around the bog and try to find another spot to set up another trail camera. So my goal is to set up my trail cameras now, leave them out for a few weeks, and see what I get. Hopefully be able to kind of figure out a pattern of when animals are going in and out around the area, so that I can set up my photo blind and then have an idea of when there's activity in these areas, so I can set up at a specific time when there's more activity and hopefully get some pictures of these more elusive animals. There's a lot of mammals in this forest that you just don't find during the day unless you're very lucky. There's bobcats, there's red and gray fox, coyotes, black bears, fishers. So there's a lot that could be photographed, and I'm excited to see what's in the area. I'm making my way around the bog, and I've been trying to keep my eye out for another access point to the backside of the bog. Really just kind of another avenue or another kind of more well-defined path that the wildlife might be taking to get into the bog. And I haven't really found one. I thought I found another log, but it was just kind of too decomposed, and I don't think it would be sturdy enough to hold anything. And I didn't see any signs or scat around it, so I'm just gonna keep looking, see if I can find another spot. This area is starting to flatten out a little bit, which might be nice, because keeping in mind I'm gonna want to try to set my blind up around here as well. Oh jeez, I'm making all sorts of noise. So a spot that might be a little flatter might be good too. I'm actually making my way away from the bog now to see if I can find just a game trail somewhere over in this area. There's a good amount of spots where deer have been kicking up the ground, probably looking for acorns and that sort of things. Alright, I think I found my next spot. I'm going to set up a trail camera. There's definitely some activity, some deer activity, and there's hoof prints all over in the dirt, and there's scratch marks, and we have some deer droppings, some old and some new deer droppings in this area. And this is actually, it's kind of like a ridge line, so the bog is over that way, and there's actually a pond body of water this way. So this is another high area, and it kind of follows along this way and kind of goes back around that way. And as I was coming over here, I actually spooked a deer and actually it ran that way. So, but this is kind of a nice open area, and there's some down logs. But if I set up my blind, if there's activity here, I can set up my blind over in this area here. There's kind of a spot here where there's a spot over there, and the sun will be behind me on that side facing this way. So I think I'm going to set up on this tree here, as long as the diameter is not too big. We're going to see, and then I hopefully will have a nice clear shot if there's any activity that way. It's just too big. I'm going to find another tree to set up on. Hear that? Barred owl. Awesome. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna go check that out. So I got the camera set up right there, angling this way. This is what we got. So we should have this whole area here. It's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna go pack my things up. See if I can find this owl. It was really nice to be able to hear the barred owl hooting. I moved about 50 yards or so in the direction that I heard it. I was looking around, being very slow, very quiet. I didn't want to scare it, and I ended up just sitting on a log and just looking out into the forest, hoping that I would hear it again. It didn't hoot anymore, and I decided to just leave it be. It's actually back that way now behind me, a pretty good distance. I just let it be. It's getting dark out, and I got a pretty good hike out of the forest yet, so I'm going to continue on, and if I see anything on the way out, I will stop and bring you guys along. But if not, it's going to be it for me. This is kind of part one of a larger series. A couple weeks I'm going to come out, check the cameras, see if I find anything, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have some luck and be able to set up my blind in a couple areas in this where the trail cameras were, and hopefully get some great pictures of some mammals or whatever's out and about in that area. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part, and I'll see you next time. And subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. As soon as I stopped recording, I looked behind me and saw that there was a white-tailed doe walking slowly towards me. I had a feeling it was the same one that I had spooked a few minutes earlier when I was setting up the trail camera. Somehow I was able to sit and set up my camera without spooking it, and it continued to slowly walk towards me, acting as if it was curious to what I was. I avoided eye contact, and the deer just kept coming closer and closer, until it was about 10 yards from me. I sat there with the deer staring at me, and it eventually walked off in the direction where I just set up the trail camera. This was an amazing feeling, knowing that I'd probably catch an animal on the camera later that evening. I made my way out of the forest without any other incident, but it was really nice to end on such a high note. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in part 2 of this series.